Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the Mets, Mets from New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets. Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets. All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another live stream here, right here on the channel. Hopefully everybody is doing good today. And we got the Carlos Mendoza press conference from Port St. Lucie live. Basically the first time he's spoke much since his press conference. And now we're going to get him from where the Mets are going to be playing spring training in Port St. Lucie. And it's going to be a very interesting interview and press conference. I really want to see what he is going to say. I do apologize being a few minutes late. I had some technical difficulties, but as soon as the press conference happens, I'll bring you the audio live here so you can get an idea of what he's going to say. If you're not at a TV or you're on your phone, you're at work, or you just want to listen and relax, I'll give you the information, everything you need tonight. Or today, actually, 12 o'clock, what Carlos Mendoza has to say about the team, what is his expectations, and everything else that we need to hear from Carlos Mendoza. And also, we are definitely going to have a little bit of a quick post press conference for a few minutes to see, did you like what he says? Did he look nervous? What is he going to bring to the table? And I think he's going to talk a lot about, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of questions asked or it's just going to be him just rambling off. We'll see. David Stearns had his press conference yesterday in Port St. Lucie, and he did answer questions. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Carlos Mendoza is going to have a similar press conference, or is it just going to be him talking? And it's going to be I really going to like to see what he is going to be talking about, because, again, a new manager here. He's a new manager. He's never managed before in his life. He's had a ton of experience in the dugout, bench coach, other coaches as well. Never a manager in Major League Baseball. So it's a crapshoot. Let's be honest. I think he's going to be fine. But again, until you actually see him on the day of game process and in-game process, you just don't really know if he's going to be a good manager. So just give me a second, guys. Let me just pull it up really quickly. Give me a second, guys. Let me just make sure that it's ready to go. And we'll be on our way to listening to the press conference of Carlos Mendoza. All right. Give me a second, guys. All right. Give me a second, guys. All right. Here we go. All righty, guys. All right. So once it gets started, guys, I will put it on. And we'll just be waiting for it to go down. And then when it does, we'll listen up. And I'll have it to you right here as well. So let me just get it started. And we'll be ready to go, boys. That's how it's going to go. All right, guys. Just give me a second. And we're going to have it all ready to go. All right. Perfect. All right, guys. All right, ready? Sorry about that. All right, there we go. As long as I know it's working, that's all that counts. All right, guys. Perfect. All right. So I see people in the chat right now. I see Daniel's talking about Pete Alonso again. Get Pete Alonso out of your head. It's not happening. This extension is not happening during the off season or during spring training or during the season. It's just not happening. Like, we got to get that through our heads. A lot of us are not getting it through their heads. It's just not happening. All right, guys. It's not right now. It's gonna happen. Hopefully, at the end of the season, in the off season. That's basically what's gonna go down, guys. That's basically it. Unfortunately, that's how it goes, but you can't do nothing about it anymore, right? There was a time in the off season when I thought it could happen, but it's not. All right, so here we go, guys. It's coming on in a second. Give me a second. All right, here we go, guys. Carlos Mendoza is coming in a second. I'm gonna share my screen and we're gonna watch it together. All right, here we go. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Just give me a second. All right, perfect. Let me make sure that you guys can see it and we'll be good. All right. All right, perfect. All right, perfect. Just let me know in the comments, guys, if you can hear it when it does go down. All right, there we go. Once it comes on, you'll hear it and we'll be ready to go. But yes, guys, so that's again, the Pete Alonso thing is not happening. Again, David Stearns already said it yesterday too. He was saying, how good of a player he is and all that fun stuff. And that's about it. What is he going to say, right? It takes two to tango. If Pete Alonso, again, as soon as Pete Alonso got Boris as his agent early in the offseason or right after this, not too long before the offseason really got started, it wasn't happening, right? It's very rare, if at ever, once in a blue moon, you'll have Boris sign an extension. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately. Again, it is what it is at this point. Let like David Stern says, let Pete have a good year and let the Mets have a good year. And then when we get to the offseason next year, we'll have a conversation. And the Mets are going to be the last one on there, the last one standing, and are going to get the last call, right? Boris knows that the Mets can give Pete Alonso the most money, right? Teams don't give extensions unless they're going to get a discount as an extension. That's why teams do extensions, to save a little bit of money on the back end of a contract or the entire contract. That's how extensions happen. Extensions doesn't happen when a player gets every single penny and there's no discount for the team. There's no incentive for the team, money-wise and business-wise or financially, to do so. Extensions happen when a player might be a little worried about getting hurt, might be worried about not having a good season, and their contract might not be as big. But the team doesn't benefit from an extension if you're not getting any type of discount. And apparently and clearly, Pete Alonso doesn't want to give any discount. So it doesn't make sense for the Mets to just throw out a number there and, say, oh, well, here you go. Because I guarantee you the Mets probably threw out numbers and it probably wasn't nowhere near where what Pete Alonso was expecting. But again, if the Mets have to give Pete Alonso $260 million next offseason, then that's it. Then they had to spend more than what they had to, but at least they did it because they had to, and not because in the and during this offseason that they just had to do it and just assume that it was going to be okay. So just give me a second, guys. Let me just make sure that it's not rolling up yet. So as soon as it goes on, I'll let you know, and you guys can see it as well, just so we're ready to go. So it's probably going to take a couple of minutes before it gets started, and let me know in the comments, guys, if you guys can hear it. All right. So that's where we are right now when it comes to Pete Alonso.
Not your first spring training, but first in this capacity. Just how does the preparation, what your job entails, differ this year versus the other years that you've been a coach?
Yeah, a lot different, obviously. Making sure I get to know a lot of the people, that work in the organization, not only from the front office side, player development, but the players as well. It's been 3 months, and now we get to this day and seeing a lot of people face to face. Is a lot different with a lot of the conversations. When in the past I'm just more like practice planning and all that. But now it's more like leadership, getting to know coaches, getting to know players, the organization, and how we're going to attack spring training and the season moving forward. So obviously a lot of different, but fun at the same time.
What does a successful spring look like to you?
For me, it's health. Obviously, right? You wanna break camp with a lot of you guys healthy, right? But just creating the connections in that locker room. Getting to know a lot of the new faces, especially for me as the manager, but some of the coaches, some of the people in the front office that are new, and some of the new faces that we brought to be a part of this team. I think this creating that connection, building those relationships, so we could start trusting each other, and that's how I see it. But at the end of the day, is each guy getting ready individually uh, for their season, um, but health obviously is in creating that connection.
You said it's been 3 months. Does it feel any more real now than it did at the start?
Yes, for sure. And it's exciting because to be able to put in a big league uniform as a manager for the first time, and to do it for this organization, for the New York Mets, is such an honor and a privilege. And I'm really, really excited. It was long 3 months, but now day one, and seeing some of the faces is really, really exciting. So yeah,
What do you hope to learn over these next 6 or 7 weeks?
yeah, learn. I will learn a lot from the organization. We got everybody here in camp. Players, the way we do things. The way we prepare. And just the connections too. I need to learn the players. I need to learn my coaching staff. I need to learn some of the things that we're going to be doing each and every day. To prepare to win baseball games. So every day, I feel like we are all learning about each other, about our process, and about the players. So I'm excited about that.
And what do you want players to learn about you?
Um, that I care about relationship. That I care about the connections that we create in that locker room. That we stay tight together as a group, and then we have fun. This is a hard game, and we all know that. But at the end of the day, I want those guys to know that I'm all about preparation, attention to details, but having fun at the same time while we're doing it.
Hey, Carlos. Yesterday, David touched on a few spots where he thought there could be some competition for areas where it's DH, bullpen, third base. Just curious what your outlook was on those spots.
Yeah,
What do you see there?
I've been pretty consistent with competition, bring the best out of people, right? And feel like the last couple of spots out of the bullpen, and we got a lot of depth. We got some good options, and hopefully they're healthy, they're throwing the ball well, and they're making those conversations and those decisions really, really hard, especially towards the end of camp, right? Same way with some of the younger players. We talk about third base, but we feel good with what we got going in, right? And then whether it's that last roster spot out of the bench, whether it's a platoon player, there's definitely going to be some competition, and it's a healthy competition, and it's always fun to have some of this. And again, we're a long ways away from that. We're still a few weeks away, and hopefully they make it tough on us, to make those decisions.
Carlos, coming in from the Yankees, you're in a spot that we've asked other guys that have done that, Willie Randolph, Buck Showalter. This is really going to be your first chance to put your imprint on these players in the spring. What are you going to try to make this team be like? What's a Carlos Mendoza team going to look like? And coming from the Yankees, which was a big part of your upbringing there.
A team that's going to be prepared, the attention to details, the way we play fundamental baseball, is that's going to be one of the three key areas. That we got to do everything that we can every day to prepare to win a baseball game. Sticking to our process, and respecting each other. Obviously that product on the field, the fan base expect a lot of us, right? And but from my end, like you say, coming from the Yankees, and those names that you mentioned is details, preparation, fundamentals, and again having fun doing it. So
Is that going to be a hard thing to do? I mean, there's a mechanical side to a camp, making sure everything runs all right. But is it going to be, how hard is it to kind of put your personality and your stamp on the way these guys carry themselves and play the
Well, I wouldn't say it's one of the hardest thing. I mean, it's I think it's a day to day type deal where again they got to get as much as I need to get to know them. They got to get to know who Carlos Mendoza is, right? And my personality, how I'm going to be handling certain situations, and how I want the guys to prepare. Um, so yeah, I think it's one of those that I need to learn as much as possible. They need to learn who I am, and same thing with the coaches. We got a lot of new faces in the coaching staff, and they need to create that connection right away.
Specifically on third base, how much run do you expect Vientos to get there this spring? And bigger picture, where do you just see him kind of fitting in defensively versus DH versus whatever?
Look, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if he's in the lineup, that means he's playing well, right? And that means whether it's a third, first base, DH, and um, it'll play itself out, right? Hopefully, like I said, we're having those discussions at the end of camp. That means they're not only healthy, but they're having great camps, and they're making it tough on us. But yeah, with Vientos, with Beatty, with all of them, Wendell, there's a lot of guys there, but specifically with Vientos, he's, whether it's third base, with first base, there's going to be progression. There's going to be a plan in place there for him, making sure they are both getting reps, in games. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out.
Carlos, Mets fans are dying to win. Do you share their passion?
Of course, I know what I signed up for. I've been in New York for the past 6 years, and I know the expectations here, and it's not different, right? They're dying. We want to win as much as they want to, and we understand. We're building that foundation starting today, and that's going to be the message. We're not winning a championship on day one, and we got to make sure we prepare. We got to make sure we build those relationships, and then we start connecting. But yeah, understanding that there's high expectations here in New York, and they want to win, and we want to win as well.
Yes. Every team has strengths and weaknesses. What do you see as the biggest strength and the biggest weakness of this team?
I would say, the depth. I feel like David in the front office did a really good job of bringing a lot of different pieces to the roster. And we really feel good about our depth, whether it's from the position player side, from the pitching side. The weakness, that's a good one, because I really feel good about it. I feel good about the talent that we got in that room. We got some established players, and we got some young players that are knocking at the door, and we're excited to watch them play and perform.
Given that players are trickling in already, tomorrow's the first pitchers and catchers workout. The other hitters will be coming in the next few days. At what point do you address the team and give that speech?
Yeah, so tomorrow will be a short one to the pitchers and catchers, but the big one will be on Monday. Once the position players report here, that's going to be the biggest meeting there when everybody gets in here and get everybody in the room.
And who's your center fielder?
Who's my center fielder? We got good options. We got good options. And look, we brought Bader in here, obviously, but we also got Brandon Nemo. And from the beginning, we've been having those conversations with Brandon, and he's been very, very open about it. And we all know Brandon. This is a guy that wants to win, and he will do everything he can possibly do to help this team win a game, whether that's in left, whether that's in center. We got Tyrone Taylor as well. So we got, the good thing is we got options, and it's up to me, the coaching staff, putting together a plan and talking to the players as well, to make sure we're putting them in a position to have success. And, whether it's Bader playing center, whether it's Nemo playing center, or Taylor playing center. So again, I'm going to go back to we got good options there.
When it comes to the rotation, what do you make of guys in competition for sort of the 5-6? Either you have guys like McGill and Lucchese, we saw a little bit of last year. What do you think you need to see from them?
To be themselves. It's not a secret that to get to 162 plus, we're going to need more than 5, right? And the fact that we got a lot of options in, you mentioned those two, they're going to play a big role for us. They're going to pitch meaningful games. They're going to give us meaningful innings. And I feel like, the way we're going to approach is everybody's getting ready for opening day, right? Hopefully, I'm going to go back to health again, right? Hopefully, we're having those conversations that everybody's healthy and they're throwing the ball well and they're making it tough on us. But we're not gonna, we're gonna need a lot. We're gonna need all of them. So the good thing is we got options.
David touched on yesterday. Excuse me, the possibility you're gonna need a 6-man rotation at some point. How do you kind of see that playing out a little bit?
Yeah, it'll play itself out. Early on, we got few off days that will allow us to get that extra rest for, hopefully, everybody's healthy, right? But it depends. There's a lot of things to consider here, and where you are on the schedule. Health is obviously important, but getting to know the players and who needs that extra day, who doesn't. I think is us learning the players. I'm going to rely a lot on Hef and our medical and training staff to make those decisions. But yeah, that's I think at some point we'll be very open and very flexible about that.
And Nimmo, if he's not playing center field, if he's the primary left fielder, would you want to leave him in one spot, or would you want him to potentially bounce back and forth between two spots?
Yeah, and that was one of the things that when we first started talking about this, back in November, that came up, and again, he's willing to do whatever it takes. The biggest thing is our communication here and making sure that he's preparing, and we're putting him in a position where he's going to be the best version of Brandon Nimmo, whether that's in left field or in center field, but making sure that communication is clear, and he's going to be a part of that conversation. So yeah, I could see him playing both. I could see him staying in life sometimes. There's a lot that goes into this decision here, whether it's matchup based, off days, health, all that is comes into play when it comes down to right on lineup.
So yesterday, David mentioned that the Mets were a championship caliber team. Do you agree? And if so, what makes this team championship caliber?
We got a lot of talent in this room. We are excited about the players that we got. Not only the established players that been here and had success, but the younger players as well. We got a lot of depth. And yeah, I mean, look, it's New York, right? And every time you're in the arena and you're competing, you want to win. And understanding that we got work to do, but that's our goal, and those are our expectations. But we really feel good about our group, our team, and there's a lot of talent, and they're hungry. They're hungry. So,
how do you anticipate handling the workload of Edwin Diaz after the injury last season?
Yeah, he's doing great to begin with. He's got a smile on his face, and he's finishing his rehab program, and he's going to be one of those with. Let's get through spring training. Let's get to the regular season, and we'll have those conversations. But we got to be mindful of where he's at physically. How is he responding after each outing? We got to get step one first. We got to get him in games. He's probably going to be doing a lot of the backfield work first. Then we got to get him on the main stadium. And once we get to opening day and we get the season going, like the back-to-backs and how many days are we comfortable or using him. But this is going to be a conversation with not only Edwin, Hef, but the medical and training staff to help us guide us make that decision.
All right. Thank you very much, Carlos.
Thanks.
All right. Here we go. Alrighty, guys. So it was a very, very quick press conference, which I expect because, what did you expect, right? All right, guys. So let me just finish this up. There we go. All right, guys. So, all right, there we go. Well, Joel, I mean, sure, that's probably not going to happen. But again, there's still players out there, and until they're all gone, I'm not going to say the Mets aren't going to get any of them. Again, you talked about, that Martinez is not going to take $8-9 million. Well, he's clearly not getting $10 million or 15 or 12 or $13 million because no team is giving it to him. And the difference with Soler, stop comparing Soler and Justin Turner to JD Martinez. It makes no sense. JD Martinez is just a bat. He cannot play the field, at least consistently enough if somebody gets hurt or play him 2 or 3 days in a row. He doesn't do that. He is a bona fide DH. So teams a lot of teams now, especially with the analytics and all this nonsense, don't like to have guys on their roster that has no versatility at all. Because if the guy has versatility and he doesn't hit, at the very least, he could probably be on the field and take up that spot, right? Vice versa. If a guy can only play, if he can play the field and you're not really worrying about his bat, then at least one thing's coming out of that. If JD Martinez is either injured with his back or doesn't hit, guess what? He is useless on a roster. That's the problem that teams are having, right? Look at the last couple of seasons, the teams he was with, right? And especially with the Dodgers, right? He had a great season last year, right? But let's not act like the Dodgers gave him $17 million or even $15 million. They gave him a $10 million deal, right? Right? They could afford to give him $10 million for 1 year because they were getting JD Martinez to fill a role. They were not expecting him to be one of the better players offensively in baseball. Right? I can assure you they weren't thinking that he was going to have that type of year. When you have Betts and you have all these other guys and Freeman and those guys, like clearly you're not really worried about JD Martinez. He just had a great year, really great year. And you can't pay this guy for what he did last year, especially with his age and his injury history, because he doesn't bring anything else to the table except the bat. Getting JD Martinez at a decent number can still give Vientos a ton of at-bats. Why do I say that? Because JD Martinez is 36 years old, right? He's getting up there in age. We could probably have an injury every now and then. That's just what happens. And JD Martinez and Vientos is going to get starts. Well, Joel, I think Diaz is fine. Like, he had a full year to recover, right? He's been pitching. Like, it's not like this is the first time he threw a ball in a year. He's been throwing in Puerto Rico. He's been throwing, nonstop and building up the strength since last year with that knee. Now, I'm not telling you he's going to be the best closer in baseball, but is he going to be a little rusty? Yeah, that's what spring training is for. You know what? Get all your walks, get all your, your wild pitches out now. And then when spring comes, when you have 12, 13, 14, innings, or at least 10 to 15 innings under your belt in spring training, you're ready to go. And that's the point, right? And I think Diaz is going to be fine. Am I going to tell you he's going to be as great as 2022? I think a healthy Diaz wouldn't have been as good as 2022. That's how good he was dominant. Like, every time he went in there, you expected to win the ball game. Now, do I expect him to be bad? No. But with his stuff, and he's young enough to come back for those type of injuries, he had a full year to recover, and he's been pitching, he's been working out, he's been running. Like, it's not like he's just been sitting around waiting for spring training, to come around. So he's been working. Yeah, well, how many, Joel, again, you keep saying that, but again, Martinez is not going to take as many at-bats away as everybody thinks, right? Vientos can play third base. Vientos, right? Even David Stearns didn't necessarily give Vientos a vote of confidence yesterday either. If you look when they started to ask him about players, he also says, yeah, well, they brought up, different competitions, with the bullpen and the rotation. Didn't really say that, they asked about the DH. He didn't say Vientos' name right off the bat. He did say, yes, he has to play kids, but that also means Brett Beatty at third base, right? That's what that means as well, right? Alvarez at catcher, right? That's the at-bats he's talking about. Well, not just Vientos, because if you're only worrying about one player, then you're not doing something right. So, again, we act like Vientos can't play first base every now and then, can't play third base. What if Vientos wins the job at third base? I know everybody, I don't think he's a very good defensive player, but that doesn't mean he couldn't have got better. We've seen how hard he's been working out this offseason. So what if he has a better spring than Brett Beatty, like offensively and defensively? You got to give him the job, right? So we'll see. Again, I think people are just like, oh, you got to put Martinez in the lineup every day. Yeah, probably. But if he's going to play 130 games, there's 30 plus games that Vientos can play just at DH along with third base and first base. You can get Vientos into 60, 70 games if you want to. So let's not act like we can actually, knock any at-bats. And again, he says the kids. he didn't say just Vientos. People are starting to make that into a Vientos story when it's not just about Vientos. It's about Brett Beatty. It's about Francisco Alvarez as well. Yeah, Francisco Alvarez might be the starter, but what if Francisco Alvarez looks terrible in spring training? You can't put him out there opening day while you have Omar Narvaez collecting $7 million on the bench. Like, that's not going to happen. I'll tell you that right now. Right? They always talk about competition. If one player plays better than the other in spring, that player that played bad shouldn't get the job. That was the problem last year. Guys that didn't deserve it got the job, and it completely derailed the season along with injuries. Well, Joel, again, we might. I believe I'm agreeing with you with it like this. With that, I am. But again, the fact of the matter is, Viento again. Pete Alonso was a butcher at first base as well when he first came up. Right, he wasn't a good first baseman. Right, and I think they'd rather have Vientos play more third base than first base. You don't even know Pete Alonso's going to play the most, obviously. Yeah, Joel, the Mets have been consistent, but consistent on what? Who? Again, there was one position player they probably wanted, right? Soler would have been a nice option, but 3-year deal is just not where the Mets were going to go. Justin Turner, I was a little annoyed about, but for $13 million, I didn't think the Mets were going to go by that number, even though I like his versatility, right? Those two guys bring more to the table than just a bat. Right, Soler's not very good defensively, but he can play the outfield for 115 games if need be. Right, he has options. JD Martinez doesn't have any options, and we keep on talking about the same thing. Let's see. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, guys. Like I said, there's no reason why Vientos can't get better at third base. Right, as of right now, it seems like Brett Beatty is going to be the third baseman, but they never actually said that Brett Beatty is going to be the guy. They just talked about competition. They talked about it in the bullpen, and I guarantee you there's going to be a competition at third base. So there's possibilities for Vientos to win the third base job. Again, do I think he's a good defensive third baseman? No, but let's not act like we've seen him a ton at the major league level. Now, he hasn't been great at the minor league level defensively, but that doesn't mean he can't get better. If Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo can get better defensively, Mark Vientos can as well. Joe, you have confidence in Cohen? Yeah, because I know if this team does it, again, everybody wanted him just to sign no names. Like, if they were to sign guys that we know, right? Do you want to play a Blake Snell $200 million? Do you want to play a Jordan Montgomery close to $200 million? Like, we act like they weren't offering Yamamoto $325 million. Ohtani never wanted to come to the East Coast, right? That was a guarantee. He's probably going to be a Dodger from day one. So guys that we're talking about are guys that are not going to change the scale of this team as much as everybody believes, right? Everybody believes Blake Snell is going to be as good as he was last year? Probably not. Right? Giving a guy $200 million who goes 5 innings every game and barely goes beyond that, if ever, is not smart money to spend, right? You got to spend your money. Just because you have it doesn't mean you just spend it, right? If you got $100,000 in your pocket, do you just spend it all willy-nilly, or do you want to try to get the right things you need in your life to invest that money in, right? You have to look at it in many different ways. You can't just spend money because you have it, right? We all know that spending a ton of money doesn't buy you championships, right? You can't tell me that anybody was like, besides Yamamoto, even though we don't know what he's going to be at the major league level, but a lot of teams are after him. So let's not act like, there was only a few teams when there was a lot of teams that could afford him, wanted him, right? Say if he is really good. The Mets were willing to give $325 million. That would have pushed them well over the luxury tax if they would have just signed that one player. Now, if we were to sign Yamamoto, what happened? If Joel's right about he was spooked by the luxury tax, okay, that's fine. But in 2025, the only way the Mets are going to get better is by signing a lot of guys as well. That's going to take them over the luxury tax anyway. So there's no difference. The fact of the matter is, now, we all believe it's a transition year when it comes to a couple of these young kids. We understand that. But at the same time, there's a possibility, especially where the offseason has turned out, where I don't think a lot of these guys are getting what they want. Now, Soler only got what, $1 million more per year than what he opted out of, but he got his 3-year deal. Now, you're looking at a desperate team in the Giants who was trying to get a bat for how many years now? They lost out on Judge. They lost out on Correa, right? They haven't really been, able to get anybody, and they were desperate for Jorge Soler. And I guarantee you Jorge Soler had him over the barrel when they came to negotiations, and finally they pulled the trigger. So I would say Rangers bought a championship, sure, but they also at the trade deadline made smart trades as well, right? And everybody, people are funny with the Rangers, like when they were like, "Oh, look, the Rangers signed this guy, they signed that guy, they signed that guy." Players wanted to go there. Players wanted to go there because they were giving them the bigger contracts. That's basically it. That's it. Joel, I'm not. Well, again, I have a feeling Baltimore with their new owner is going to try to sign Corbin Burns. So I don't know if Corbin Burns is going to be on the market, but there's a ton of pitchers on the market, especially in the trades and free agency that the Mets can do after next year. But let's not worry about next year. Like Juan Soto is a Yankee. Corbin Burns is an Oriole. Right now, I'm not concerned about those guys. They don't matter to me. The only time when it matters is if I hear them sign an extension, which I damn sure believe Soto's not doing, and Burns might. But even that, I don't think he's going to do either. But it's a possibility. So, well, Anthony, they are talking about that, right? He brought it up. Like he talks about, he believes there's talent here. They want to win. He talked about being in New York and the pressure and the New York fans want to win, right? He talked about that. All right, but you know what, Joel? Trying is what every team does. Every team's going to try to get Soto, but at the end of the day, one team's going to get him. You don't think if the Mets get Juan Soto, you think the Yankees didn't try, or the Orioles, or whoever else didn't try to get him? Of course they do. Yeah, Aaron, that's fine. And the Texas has no state income, but why didn't players go there 5-6 years ago? Because they weren't a good team, right? Let's not act like the Texas Rangers, the state of Texas was just turned into a no state tax. Like it's, I mean, come on, like. The Houston Astros weren't signing a ton of free agents, right? They didn't want to add to their payroll very much either, except for the young kids to try to sign them, right? Let's not act like Texas was just signing everybody every single year, and now they finally won. Let's not act like that happened. So we have to remember that too, right? They gave the biggest contracts to these players. That's why they went there, right? Before Seager went there and Simeon went there, they lost 100 games. So let's not act like they're a storied franchise. They never, before last year, they never won a World Series. They weren't a very competitive team. They lost 100 games 2 years ago. So let's not act like they were, this prominent franchise that had so much going for them. Again, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, whatever free agent you want to talk about, unless they go back, well, not even anymore, because it seems like you give the biggest offer, they'll come here. Right? That's how it goes. Any team. If the Kansas City Royals decide to spend, they say, we're going to spend $300 million on a player, and they choose this player, and they're the biggest offer, they're going to go to Kansas City. Like, let's not act like these players are worried about where they're going. All right? Like, if the Seattle Mariners come with the biggest offer, that player is going to go there. If the Pittsburgh Pirates finally look like they want to spend money and they give a big contract and the highest offer, guess what? That player is going to go there, right? Because a lot of these players believe that they're one of the players that can turn a franchise around, right? Alex Rodriguez went to Texas out of nowhere. Where did they go? They spent a ton of money. Didn't work. All right, guys. So we had the press conference. Again, it was a quick one. I don't expect much from him probably until next week with his press conferences. But he talked about, he likes the talent they have on his team. Again, what is he going to say? I'm sorry, I just got the job. You think I'm going to say this team sucks? No. And again, who knows? You got a lot of guys on 1-year deals. I said, stop looking through a 162-game season. Doesn't make sense to look that far down the road. Look at it from a first half perspective. You got a couple of months to stay in the mix at the deadline. I truly believe if the Mets are in it within 4 to 5 games of a wild card and they're not totally out of it, they're going to buy at the deadline. I think they're going to make moves. Steve Cohen is going to give that money if he needs to, add some money to the payroll, make some trades with some assets from the farm system, and get whatever they need at that time at the deadline. That's all you have to do. Don't worry about the 162 game season. The last 70, 80 games of the season, I would say 70 games of the season, are irrelevant until we get to the trade deadline. Because the 70 games might mean absolutely nothing as we trade all the 1-year contracts, or it could mean something based on if they're in competition for a wild card spot at the deadline. And again, we keep on talking about like the National League so dominant when besides the Braves and the Dodgers, there's a lot of teams in the middle here, and the Mets are directly in that middle. Right? I believe the Phillies are a solid team, but they're running it back. They didn't really get better. They brought back Nola. Like that's what they did. Right? Besides the Braves and the Dodgers, there's not a lot of dominant teams in the National League. Right? There's a lot of teams that the Mets could beat as well. Right? We act like the National League, is 5, 6, 7 deep, which they're really not. Right? It takes one really good month. Like I said, if the Mets from April until the end of July have one of those months where they're 8, 9, 10 games over 500, and then over the next other months prior to the deadline are around 500, they're going to be right in the mix at the deadline. Because if you look at it last year, exactly where teams were was exactly where I expected. I said it. I said an 83, 84 win team was going to make the playoffs, and it was an 84 win team that did. Now, the Mets are the Mets can be anywhere between 77, I would say, to 85. That's where I think their win total is. Again, if they have if this pitching staff pitches better than what they're expected to, a lot of things can change here, because I don't think the offense is as bad as a lot of people are as they're killing them. So it is very interesting to see. Again, exactly, Joe. We're not a bad team, right? The Mets won 75 games last year, and by August, you didn't know any player. Half these guys you didn't even know were in Major League Baseball that were playing for the Mets. The fact of the matter is that you have to look at it a lot of different ways. Too many people are looking at the whole entire stretch of a season. That is a stupid way to look at it. And the Mets are not looking at it that way. They're looking at it from a first half perspective, which they should be doing, right? A lot of guys are playing for contracts. Sometimes it propels them to being better than what they are, or being on the level that they currently were prior to their bad season, right? That's the way we have to look at it as well. And I understand people are frustrated because, people just want no names, right? They want people that they know on their team, right? But regardless of the situation, I don't want to give Blake Snell $200 million. Jordan Montgomery is not worth close to $200 million. He's just not. Like, we act like one of those guys is going to drastically change this team, which is going to make him from an 82-win team to a 95-win team. Now, it's possible, but to get that much of a jump, it takes more than just one guy. It takes multiple guys on your roster. And you got to have Pete Alonso play to his capabilities. Lindor, Nimmo, those guys in general. We need Alvarez to pick up that average a little bit along with his power. We need Brett Beatty to show up. We need Mark Vientos to show up. We need Starlin Marte to be, even if he's 50% what he was in 2022, that is a huge difference than the 0 we got in 2023. Well, I agree, Joe. I think Marte was the catalyst in 2022, right? The one batter I wanted up in a big spot was the 2022 Marte. The guy was just a beast. And if he stays healthy, he's going to be Starlin Marte. Now, I'm not going to say 2022 Starlin Marte, but if he plays close to the back of his baseball card, which is close to a 300 average, knocking around 20 home runs, but being a catalyst, being a guy that you would want up in a big spot. That's what he was in 2022. And David Stearns talked about it yesterday, that he was at a game where Starlin Marte was playing right field, and a couple of balls went to him where he had to really, hustle and break it down and get to that ball. And David Stern says he looks like Starlin Marte. Now, again, looking like Starlin Marte is great in the Dominican Winter League. Now, health doesn't really matter where you play. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. But it's nice to see. And I said this, I think the Mets did a great job in telling Marte to shut him down for the season last year because he wanted to come back. He wanted to come back. And it would have been a smart move when the Mets weren't going anywhere. Now, if the Mets were going for a playoff push, obviously you would want Starlin Marte back. But giving him that extra rest, dealing with that surgery that I don't think he ever recovered from. I think last spring training, remember, he didn't start spring training right away. They slowly brought him along. I think he came back too quickly, and I think it hurt him the rest of the season. So having him basically, it felt like it was like a whole year of recovery, even though he's at the age he's at. A lot of the times, the bat is still there. And if you look at the Dominican Winter League, and I watched a couple of his games, his bat speed's still there. And usually you'll see a tick or two slower, but his bat speed's still there. And these guys were throwing 98, 99 a lot of the times that he was batting. These are hard throwers. So if he can catch up to that and the bat speed's still there, you don't lose your eye that quickly. And it was mostly injury last year. I'm sorry, a guy from 2022 to 2023 doesn't get, old overnight. Usually it's a gradual, shift in performance, not just completely fell off the map. So, yeah. And leadership, I've talked about this for years, right? Somebody has to step up here. And a lot of people are talking about Brandon Nimmo being a leader. And listen, everybody knows I'm not the biggest Brandon Nimmo fan. He got better offensively, which, it's hard to kill the guy that got better offensively, right? I believe analytics really helped his defensive capabilities more in center field, where they told him to play deeper, which made him better going back on balls because he didn't have much distance to the gaps, the right or left field gap, to get to those balls. But it made him a better player. Nimmo in left field makes him an outstanding player, possibly great, because I think his defense and his awareness and the analytics that made him a better center fielder is only going to make him a great left fielder. And we don't have to worry about that terrible arm in center field. You put it in left field, and I'm fine with that. A lot of people talking about Brandon Nimmo stepping up and being a leader. Listen, I'm all for it. I am not the biggest Nimmo fan, and I've said that for many years, right? I thought it was an outrageous contract to give Nimmo, but he's here. It is what it is. I'm rooting for the guy because he has Mets on his chest. That's it. So if Nimmo can be the leader, great. I don't care who the leader is. I don't care if it's the ball boy. Somebody's got to be a leader. Somebody's got to step up when things are going bad, because nobody, and that goes for Alonso, that goes for Lindor, those guys did not step up. When things are going bad, you need that leader to step up and have a conversation. Guys, what the fuck are we doing here? We're better than this. Let's go. Like, you need somebody to get in people's faces. Pete Alonso don't seem like that guy. He's too quirky and just an odd individual. And I just think he just likes to play baseball and be a goofy guy, which is fine. You can be that. But you also got to be a leader. You can't be the face of the franchise. You can't say, you can't, portray yourself as the face of the team. And then when things get tough, not only do you play bad, the rest of the team plays bad, and it spirals out of control. 2022 spiraled out of control once Marte got hurt in September. That can't happen. Starlin Marte being missed in the lineup shouldn't have propelled you or not propel you to a division title going into the playoffs. That's on Lindor. That's on Alonso. That's on the guys that everybody loves and everybody thinks is the face of the franchise here, right? The Starlin Marte injury should have never knocked them down to second place in the division and a wild card spot. Same thing this year. When this team is struggling, every team goes through a struggle. You got to pick yourselves up quickly. That's when the leaders come involved. That's when the leaders say, listen, let's go. I'm going to put you guys on my back. And it's not just goes for Alonso. It goes for Lindor as well. And I think Nimmo is starting to step up a little bit more. Nimmo's the hustler, right? Nimmo can go up to anybody in their face and say, listen, you weren't hustling. You weren't doing your job. because Nimmo always hustles and always does his job, right? You never see, even if Nimmo's in a big slump, he's still hustling down the first base line like a maniac, right? Somebody's got to step up. Too many times in 2023 and the end of in 2022, there was nobody to step up. Like, you can't have great seasons and not put a team on your back, and then when it matters the most, you fold just like the rest of the team. It's not going to work. So again, maybe Alonso does become this leader, contract year. Maybe he wants to be this. I don't know, but he's got to step it up. He's got to step it up. Lindor's got to step it up. Maybe Brandon Nimmo is more outspoken with his teammates now. Fine, that's great. But this team got punched in the mouth in 2022 at the end of the season. Nothing should have derailed that season as badly as it did because Starlin Marte was gone. There was too many guys, Alonso, Lindor, McNeil, a ton of guys that were having great seasons in 2022 that could have stepped up and become a leader and said, this shit is not happening. I'm putting you guys on my back. No, they just sat there and let it happen. Same thing in 2023. Now, a lot of things went wrong, a lot of injuries, but they were in a wildcard spot on June 1st. You can't let that type of June happen and expect everybody to feel good about you. Any of these players, right? You can put up all the numbers you want, but there's certain players that propel their team, right? I see Aaron Judge. When Aaron Judge went down, the Yankees were bad. When Aaron Judge came back, they're better, right? He propels that team to something else. Now, playoffs are a different story, but I want to see Alonso. I want to see Lindor, a guy that can always put up the numbers, but do you make your team around you better, right? Where is that vocal leader? Where is that leader that stands up and is not going to take these type of months that we have that derail a season? The Mets had a really good April, a decent May, and a terrible June. Just because of that terrible June, it derailed the season. That can happen. I'm not saying that you might not have, you'll have a bad month, 5-6 games under 500. The Mets threw over 11 games over 500 in June. You can't have that type of swoon in a month. It just cannot happen. Somebody's got to step up and put this team on their back. I don't care who it is. Again, let the ball boy do it. If Mendoza, as manager, has to light a fire under these guys' asses, fine. I don't care. John Gibbons, and that's when people are talking about, having guys that are behind him like John Gibbons with a ton of experience. John Gibbons is a hothead. Carlos Mendoza, I think he's the guy that gets in people's faces. He's the guy that's not afraid to speak up and tell it how it is. Him and John Gibbons, I think, is going to work perfectly for this team because nobody, and I'm going to tell you this right now, if there's a guy that doesn't hustle, and I'm not talking about a guy coming back for injury, I think they're going to take it slow with Marte. Every now and then, you're going to see Marte, not go 150% to first base, which is not something I love, but he's protecting himself with his injury, right? You know that. But if it's guys that are not hustling down the line or giving too much of an issue, like McNeil slamming his helmet, everything like that, I guarantee you John Gibbons and Mendoza are going to nip it in the butt. That shit is it was funny the first couple of times, but when you do it every single time you don't get a hit, it becomes annoying. But John Gibbons and Mendoza, John Gibbons, he was always a guy that never shied away from confrontation and saying his piece. Is going to help Mendoza tremendously have that confidence to do what he needs to do. Again, in-game manager, nobody really knows, right? All of these guys are going by the books now. A lot of them don't really make gut decisions anymore. Analytics tells you when to take guys out, who to bring in. Every now and then, I want to see that gut decision by Mendoza. We'll see. But we don't know until that in-game situation happens. That's what we have to wait and see. All right, guys. So with that said, Carlos Mendoza spoke quickly, talked about he likes his team and likes the roster. There's a lot of talent here, all those stuff that you hear a manager say. You could be the worst team in baseball and say you have a good team, right? Spring training brings hope for every fan base, regardless of the roster. Like, let's be honest about that. It's just how it is, right? So we go into spring training. The most important thing is health, right? We all know that. right? Even Mendoza said that. I like that he brought up things that were obvious because sometimes they shy away from the obvious and try to go outside of themselves to prove a point during a press conference. Carlos Mendoza felt like Carlos Mendoza, a guy who felt like he was comfortable in his skin, said the obvious answers, which I think are important because too many times the remedial answers or the answers that you just want to hear from somebody, regardless if it's an obvious answer, he said them all. He talked about winning. He talked about liking the roster, right? He talked about health, everything that he needs to say. I like to hear those guys say when they try to shy away from it and try to say something more that to get like brownie points annoys me. So knowing that he said the obvious stuff that I wanted to hear from him is perfectly fine. He seems comfortable in his skin. He said what he needed to say, the right answers. It's fine with me. It's fine with me. So tomorrow's officially pitchers and catchers. Thursday is full squad workout, and then Mendoza said on Monday is when he gives his entire team speech when everybody is there by Monday, and we'll be ready to go kicking off spring training. I'll be down in Port St. Lucie in about 10 days. Actually 9 days from now, I'll be in Port St. Lucie. Actually, I might be moving to Florida, so I got a lot of appointments to look at places as well. So it's going to be a very busy trip for me to Florida. It's not just spring training 24/7. It's actually personal as well. So with that said, guys, Mendoza speaks. David Stern spoke yesterday. Tomorrow we're going to get the full pitchers and catchers. And it's time. Baseball is back. The Super Bowl is over. The Kansas City Swifties won. And we're in baseball season now. Of course, baseball season starts or spring training starts, and there's about 5 inches of snow on the ground outside in New York. So with that said, guys, I got to wipe off my car, shovel a little bit. So I'm going to have a good old afternoon today. So everybody have a good day. I will be doing a Mets Hot Stove tonight, 7 o'clock, going over the Mendoza comments, interview, conference, and David Stearns talking about everything else as well. So with that said, Grant, 9 days. I'll definitely see you there. With that said, guys, spring training is upon us. Pitchers and catchers tomorrow. Let's go Mets. I'll see you later tonight, guys. Let's go Mets.
So hurry up and come on down.